Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who didn't want to talk about this song. I don't want to talk about Eazy by The Game and Kanye West. I don't want to talk about it because it is a very difficult song. Now listen, very often on my hip-hop videos, people will comment something to the effect of, Sky, given your privileged life, given the fact that you're not African American, that you haven't grown up in these circumstances, you can't ever properly understand hip-hop music. To that, I say, absolutely. I have no disagreement with that statement at all. As I sometimes say, I consider hip-hop music in very much the similar way that I consider 17th century France, which is my other area of expertise. Which is to say, I can observe the culture without having to feel like I'm a part of that culture. Do you understand? Like it's a way that I honor hip-hop culture, is by not pretending that I understand it or that I live it. More that, much like I can't stop but acknowledge that Molière is the greatest playwright since Shakespeare, I have to acknowledge that hip-hop is the best and most interesting art being made right now, and my position as somebody who's good at analyzing art and expressing himself means I have a moral imperative to describe that culture. Not be a part of it, but describe it. So given that fact, that I accept that, I'm going to challenge some people who talk about this song. I think, given my life experience, to a certain degree, I'm in a unique position, not a unique position, but I am in a position to talk about this song where other people are not. You cannot understand this song unless you have been through a divorce with kids. You just can't. You can observe it, you can talk about it, you can think about it, you can do all the things that I do, but you can't feel it. This song hurts more than any song I have probably ever heard. It is such a visceral, knife-on nerve feeling that unless you've gone through that, unless you've been through that mud, you're just a tourist to this verse. I'm going to get to that verse soon. There's so much more happening in this song. I also think, musically, you can't really understand this song and where it's coming from unless you're old. I think unless you're 40 years old, late 30s, you can't really understand the bones of this song. This song, which is half Eazy-E, half early Beastie Boys. This amazing mixture. Half Eazy-E, half... Okay, I don't have the Beastie Boys' first album. Do you know why I don't own License to Ill? Because if you were like me and you grew up in the 80s, like The Game did, like Kanye West did, that album was so everywhere that I still hate that album, even though it's a great album. I recognize it as a masterpiece, but I used to be tortured by it, by all my stupid friends. So anyways, let's imagine this is License to Ill, and not ill communication. This mixture is so evocative that in a certain way, it almost feels like a reboot. It feels like I just watched Scream 5. You know, I did a video about Scream 5 on my spam channel, and it has that feeling of like old, you know, if you're young and you're just listening to this song and go, cool, backwards drum line, neat. Oh, I like this person kind of singing. That's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. But like, if you grew up with these songs, if you grew up with Paul Revere by the Beastie Boys, if you grew up with Easy Does It by Eazy-E, this song is an amazing amalgamation of these two things. And when I say like grew up, like the same, you know, it's actually a lot like Scream. Like a lot of people, the way that people talk about horror movies, like on the playground, you know, like if you grew up in the 90s, I know my wife's a couple years younger than me, so she describes it to me like it was what everybody talked about. You're like, oh my God, have you seen this? Have you heard this? That's what it used to be like. Have you heard the Eazy-E album? Who has the tape? Who has the tape of the Eazy-E album? It's the most dangerous and dark and fascinating thing that's come out. And it's savage and it's cruel and it's funny and it's smart and all these things. I think to a certain degree, Hit Boy and the other producers on this are sort of making a requel, a reboot of that feeling of Beastie Boys and Eazy-E. So let's take down these songs individually, okay? I'm going to get to that verse. I'm going to get to my shocking part. I'll even describe the black velvet painting I have behind me at the end as well. Paul Revere by Beastie Boys is by far the best song off of License to Ill. It's produced by Rick Rubin, one of the great grandfathers of hip hop. I listened to it again, and it's a lot less menacing than I remember it being. With these backwards drums, except when you get to the instrumental break. When you get to that instrumental break in the middle of Paul Revere, you're just reminded of. I know. Speaking of culture vultures and all that, the tragedy that the Beastie Boys had so much more success than Run DMC or Curtis Blow or any of the other true founders of the genre. But nobody, and I mean nobody, can take anything away from Paul Revere. It is one of the great old school hip hop beats. Definitely the best beat, the best song off of their first album. Arguably the best song the Beastie Boys ever did. I'm including Paul's Boutique in that. But what I like about what Hit Boy and Kanye and Did It Like Duke, there's some much other producers on here, what they did with this was they slowed it down to make it sound much more menacing. Now, if we take the story, it's just a story about some kids who are in trouble with the law, getting drunk, kicking up trouble. It has kind of a vague sort of Western-like feel, almost like they're outlaws, desperados, gangsters. That's exactly what Eazy-Duz-It is about. Eazy-Duz-It and Paul Revere are very much in the same sphere of dangerous hip-hop artists being dangerous, being reckless, being young, being careless, going out, as Eazy-E would say, just being gangsters having fun. It's one of the interesting things where, the License to Ill came out in 1986. And obviously, Dr. Dre is a genius on his own, right? He is. Even though he has a lot of co-producers and all that stuff, and all the people have helped him over the years, but still, obviously he's a genius, and he did a lot. When you listen to early Dr. Dre, it really does feel like Public Enemy and Beastie Boys in equal measure are really what's driving his production style. There's so much Beastie Boys in early Dr. Dre production. Matter of fact, Beastie Boys are sampled on Eazy-Duz-It on Eazy-E. So again, going back to this early days, where I think that the influence of License to Ill on gangster rap needs to be maybe more acknowledged or more discussed. It's hard because License to Ill is such an obnoxious thing in our culture. It's a great album made by great artists, but the place that it has in our culture is the exact same place that To the Extreme by Vanilla Ice holds. It was white America's refusal to allow African Americans to express this new kind of music in a way that we could accept. We had to have it be whitewashed first. But still, so much of the bones of gangster rap comes from this kind of menacing production that we hear on a song like Paul Revere. Which why 2 years later, when Eazy-E comes out with Eazy-Duz-It, we can really feel the continuity between them. And I don't think Hit Boy and Kanye are sitting around going, let's just mix together two things. I think this is a very intentional thing. I think this is trying to create that. Because when I first heard this song, I didn't think, this is an interesting song. I thought, Paul Revere, Eazy-Duz-It, I might as well have seen the Ghostface mask from Scream. It was such a visceral feeling. It was such a visceral reboot. Now we go to the song Eazy-Duz-It by Eazy-E. Obviously, the thing that's sampled in the song by The Game and Kanye West is the opening singing, which is the thing that's really hard to understand about this. I'm going to take this out of its stupid package here. The thing that's hard to understand about this album is just how important it was. For me, I listened to Straight Outta Compton maybe twice when I was a kid. This was the album I listened to because this was the true, whatever was happening in LA that I couldn't possibly understand, the whole gangster life, the whole everything, this was it. It was inscrutable. It was dangerous. It was just so unlike anything I'd ever heard before. And I don't think rap music has ever had that kind of effect since because, we're kind of used to it at this point. But Eazy-E is such an unlikable figure. He's not even an anti-hero. He's like an anti-hero. He's cruel. He beats people. He kills people. He kills his customers who are crack addicts. He makes fun of his customers who are crack addicts. He beats up women. He beats up transgender people. He beats up everybody. There's no part of Eazy-E that is likable at all, I think, on this entire album. And part of that is shown on this opening to the song Eazy-Duz-It, in which what sounds like a little girl sings, "He was once a thug from around the way." Easy, but you should never. And then Eazy-E interrupts her. B, shut the F up. Get the F out of here. That like innocence and sweetness of singing about Eazy-E. He was once, and then him just coming and essentially what this is the sound of Eazy-E walking into a studio and punching a little girl in the face. That's what this is like. That's what this album is like. That's how radical and just, god damn, he's such a jerk. You don't get that sense off of Ice Cube's music or off of any of the other guys. Like, you really get the sense that he really is that guy. Now, the song itself, if you haven't listened to it, have a listen again. Dr. Dre is just out of his mind on this song. There's so many different parts. I just for fun, I looked up all the different songs that he sampled. Ball of Confusion by the Temptations, Baby Let Me Take You by the Detroit Emeralds, Impeach the President by the Honey Drippers, Sing a Simple Song by Sly and the Family Stone, Get Your Ass Off and Jam by Funkadelic, Hold It Now, Hit It by Beastie Boys, Let's Go Crazy by Prince and the Revolution. All those things all come together. Total, maximal, modular production by Dr. Dre. There's this great story about the clucker, the crackhead, just this cookie crack took all his things, just Eazy-E's delivery. I mean, I'm talking about him being a bad person, rest in peace, but he's so charismatic. And it's right there in that line. Because I'm a gangsta having fun. So let's get to Easy by The Game and Kanye West, who both are, in some ways, putting themselves in a very similar position to Eazy-E. The Game as living his street life, and Kanye as being a very unlikable person who's frank about his unlikability. Musically, this song is a brilliant mixture of these two beats, which don't... That opening to Easy Does It, I never thought about it being taken, but the way that they do. He was once a thug from around the way, and then The Game says, my life was never easy, was just so brilliant. When I heard it, I smiled, I laughed, I clapped. But what they did was they slowed down Paul Revere. They slightly slowed down the singing of the Easy as well, and added these mournful keyboards, which, I don't know. I think that had to be Kanye doing that. He knows how to add, or maybe Mike Dean. I don't know. I can't tell who does what with the keyboards in Kanye's production, but no one knows how to throw on a keyboard that makes you want to kill yourself like a Kanye West song. At the end, DJ Premier starts scratching everything up, and that's a very clear callback to DJ Yellow's scratches on Easy Does It at the very end here and all the way throughout. So it has this great reboot feeling all the way through of just the greatest hits of 1986 to 1988. The greatest hits of the early days of gangster rap. Then we have the verse by The Game, which, by the way, has nothing to do with Kanye's verse, but is a beautiful verse. I like The Game. He started after I sort of gave up on hip-hop, so I think I bought his first album and liked it, but I didn't really follow it. That's on me. That's my bad. He's probably a really great artist. Some gorgeous imagery on here, bullet wounds drenched in Hennessy and teaspoons of Robitussin. Usage of words like drenched and teaspoons, very gorgeous. This whole thing, I got shot up like Columbine, the Crips descended on me, signed my name on the dotted line. That was vengeance on the beats, this is the way. I think he's quoting The Mandalorian. But a good verse about tough street life. And obviously, I don't know anything about that street life. I could just say it's very well said. Then we have this chorus, which is kind of a fake out chorus, because Kanye comes on and says, that I didn't mean to interrupt, ain't no love, shoulder shrug. He seems to be making reference to Taylor Swift. But then we get to Kanye's verse. And this is the thing. Just so you know, if you're on my Patreon, I'm going to be doing a video about the music of Warren Zevon and divorce soon. This was the music I listened to when I went through my divorce. I went through my divorce like 8 years ago. 9 years ago. I'm happy now, so it's hard to access that pain. But musically, I can do it. I listened to this album this morning, and it put me in that mode. I heard the song Accidentally Like a Martyr, and I was taken right back to that divorce. And the reason that I talk about that is that there are stages to a divorce, right? Just like any kind of mourning or loss. And when I reviewed Donda, I really emphasized this dude is not done with his divorce. Donda is the album of someone who thinks his marriage can be saved. That's why it's not so dark. That's why Donda is actually a pretty happy album, a pretty hopeful album when it comes to love and relationships. This is the song after it's hit the fan. This is the angry, desperate, unmoored feeling of you're losing everything, of you're losing your family. We know that Kanye suffers from manic depression. When you care about your family and you go through a divorce where custody is an issue and where you're going through all these things, you become manic depressive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. You could be the most stable person in the world. That overcomes you. You get high, you get low. I mean, not high like drugs, but like your spirit gets high, you get low. You just feel so lost. You feel so angry. You feel disillusioned because you have this belief in love and this belief in family, and you want your kids to have the perfect nuclear family that culture keeps shoving down your goddamn throat. There needs to be more movies about divorced kids, more movies about reconstituted families. There to be more culture about that. Enough of this goddamn nuclear family, because that's not the way life is, because most people get married and they're too young and they're not actually ready to accept the moral and mental responsibility of making a life with somebody else, and so they all end up in divorce, half end up in divorce, and it's okay. But anyways, here we are, and he's in this mode. And Kanye has never been a worse person than he is on this verse. Never has he ever exhibited worse behavior or a worse mentality than he does on this song. Oh, did he interrupt Taylor Swift? Who cares? Oh, did he talk about bleaching your butthole? It doesn't matter. He is truly reprehensible on this song. But it's good spiritually. And I had this, which was useful. But this song, this is it. This is the way that you feel. This is that like manic, like how dare you do this to me? How dare I do this to myself? How do you say I'm not at the table? I am the table. He says, I am the table. What do I bring to the table? I am the table. He's completely out of his mind. Talking about getting a Thug Life tattoo, right? Talking about getting a Thug Life tattoo because he's trying to be a gangster having fun. Remember, that's what Eazy-E says. I'm just a gangster having fun. This whole song is about a couple of gangsters who are not having fun. Obviously, Kanye's not a gangster, but he's taking on this persona of this high-flying, living guy with the Thug Life tattoo, but he's not really there. Like, he is showing behind the curtain the true darkness and the depths of moral and emotional depravity you go through in this situation. No more counseling. I don't negotiate with therapists. Ha, funny punchline, Kanye. Funny punchline about not going to therapy when you're going through a divorce and you're already very damaged. Ha, very funny punchline. Kanye, and you're not watching this, I know. This is a book, Putting Children First. It's a great book, okay? By John Pedro Carroll. Look it up. If you can't go to therapy, get this book. Do you understand? This is what you do in a divorce. You don't make punchlines about how you don't need to see a therapist. But what's amazing is, as always, when Kanye is bad, he is honest. He's not a hypocrite. That's the thing. Sorry, there's a beautiful deer in the backyard. There's over 2 feet of snow in my backyard right now, and there's these deer walking across. It's beautiful. You know, like he has this whole verse, we're having the best divorce ever. If we go to court, we'll go to court together. The dark sarcasm in his voice, the dark irony is just so painful because you know he's communicating it to his kids. He's communicating it through this pain. And then he says, I watched 4 kids for like 5 hours today. And this is the sadness of the rich, right? Like, oh, did you watch your kids for 5 hours? Oh my God, you know? Watching my kids for 5 hours a day is a luxury. I usually watch my kids for more than that, right? But that's not the life that he has. So he's actually discussing this weird thing of being honest about how little contact he actually has with his kids through his money. I got love for nannies, but real family is better. The cameras watch the kids. Y'all stop taking the credit. Non-custodial dad, I bought the house next door. What you think the point of being really rich for? So this... You know, when you're going through this and you don't know what you're going to lose, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much power you have, how much money you have, how good your life is, handsome, pretty, smart, strong, able, famous, anything. when you feel that you're losing your family, and this goes back to that song on Donda, don't never abandon your family. When you feel you're losing your family, it's like you're falling off of a cliff and you're trying to like a sheer wet cliff, a rock wet cliff, and you're trying to hold on with your fingernails as you fall down. That's what it's like emotionally. And that's what he gives us. And if he had stopped there, I would have been okay. When you give them everything, they only want more. Bougie and unruly, y'all need to do some chores. He's calling out his kids. He's calling out his kids on this song. It's not their fault, Kanye. If they're spoiled, it's because you spoiled them. If they're badly raised, it's because you badly raised them. They're children. They are innocent. They are 100% innocent in a divorce. That's the main thing you need to tell kids. It's the main thing you need to tell kids. They have nothing to do with it. They're totally innocent. 100% of the time, totally 100, 100% innocent. I used to tell my kids that they are as responsible for the divorce as the garage door handle. I'd take them out, I'd look at the garage door handle, I'd say, how dare this thing cause the divorce? But right here, rich-ass kids, this ain't your mama house, climb on your brother's shoulder, get that top ramen out. I get it. It's a funny punchline. He's talking about how he grew up in poverty, but his kids are not, and that they're rich and that they're spoiled. But it's a really terrible thing that he's doing. This is the worst thing he has ever said, and it's not even close. Because these little kids, there was once a dad from around the way, Kanye, but you should, and Kanye's backhanding them emotionally. This is abuse. This song is child abuse. It is. What he's saying here about his kids. He's being that villain. Artistically, it's interesting because we get to see it, but it really hurts. Another good book. I had to cover up because I didn't want my kids to see it. For Kim, I would suggest Co-Parenting with a Toxic Ex. A very good book. Very useful, by Amy L. Baker and Paul R. Fine. These things are necessary, and I'm happy the song exists, even though it was tough for me. Like, listening to the song was traumatic. It put me back in the pants. It's very triggering. And the sad thing is everyone just goes to the next line. I have to beat Pete Davidson's ass. Pete Davidson doesn't matter at all. He can release an entire song about Pete Davidson. I don't care. He could talk about like murdering Pete Davidson for 20 minutes, and it wouldn't be as bad as that one line about his kids. Bougie and unruly. It's terrible. It's terrible. God did this, is how he ends it. If God did this, maybe it's time to take it easy with God and go back to those therapists. I'm not going to explain to you this painting. I'll get to it some other time. You know how much I love Kanye, but I'm really sad right now. Jesus Christ. Okay, well, until next time, please let me know what you think in the comments. I've been a little bit, I've been triggered on this video, because that was the worst thing in my life that led to a much better life. So, who knows? Until next time. There's the camera.